Today is also MLK Day, which is a very important day. So I wanted to start off today for our topic today being focused on MLK. We got some music news too, and we'll get to that. But, usually I do a topic on Music Monday that's music related. That's not the case today. We're going to talk about MLK. So what I want to know from you guys is what are some things about MLK that you want to mention? Quotes or ideas or stories or perspectives or anecdotes or personal stories, something that maybe affected you, that you learned about. And I'll go ahead and start. So first of all, I actually did Matt Orfalia, who is a brilliant video editor. He makes some amazing compilation videos. You can find him on YouTube. It's just Matt Orfalia. I did his show earlier today, and we did MLK trivia. I didn't know I was going to do trivia with him. That was like a surprise, and I was a little nervous because I had just woken up, and I was like, I'm going to do a really shitty job at this because I have just woken up, and I'm not really feeling too savvy right now. But fortunately, it was kind of a fun, laid-back trivia. It wasn't an intense, like, wow, how do you not know this? You're an idiot trivia. So that was good. But I learned a few fun facts about MLK. Still waking up, guys. I almost said JFK. Wow, that's bad. MLK that I want to share with you guys. So first of all, to tie it into music, I never knew this. MLK won a Grammy. I never knew that about him. That was part of the trivia. He did win a Grammy. Someone compiled a spoken album like of his speeches, and it won a Grammy. I believe he was no longer with us when he won it. It was posthumous. But he did win a Grammy. And also, he was a big Star Trek fan. I never knew either of those two things, but he was a big Star Trek fan. And the actress who played O'Hara, who was the Black Lieutenant, and of course, when the original series came out, this was not a time where there were a lot of black actresses on television. And at one point, she was feeling like she wasn't getting a lot of scenes, like she was just kind of being written out of the show. So she said that she wanted to leave. And what the show's producers did was they were like, before you go, there's this fan of the show we want you to meet. And so they arranged a meeting, and then she sees MLK, and he goes, I'm the biggest fan on the planet. And then she decided to stay, and they wrote her into some more scenes. So that was a fun little tidbit. I didn't know that. So there's a few fun facts about him. And a few other things. MLK, he was very outspoken against capitalism. He really did bridge some connections between economic injustice and racial injustice. And that's a part of his history that we often don't hear about. That's certainly something that they don't teach you in school. At least I certainly didn't learn that part of it in school. And of course, the parts you did learn are still beautiful. Nonviolence, very beautiful. The I Have a Dream speech, very beautiful. But they kind of just scratch the surface, and they don't really dig deeper when it comes to MLK, because some of those messages, well, they're not as status quo friendly. In many ways, none of the messages were status quo friendly, but, they kind of package it in a much more, I guess the ironic thing here is that they package it in a very whitewashed way. Which is kind of ironic in a semi-tragic way, but yeah. So that's the part of MLK that I think that I like to remind myself of, that I like to celebrate and hold dear. That he really was a revolutionary in every aspect of the word. He was not an incrementalist. Sometimes people use his work to justify incrementalism. That is wrong. That is misguided, and that is very much cherry picking what that man was about. He was not an incrementalist. He was wary of moderates. He talked about that. He talked about capitalism. He was against it. So, that's a part of MLK that they like to sort of gloss over or pretend wasn't there. We certainly weren't taught that part in schools. Or at least I wasn't. And, little few fun tidbits. Maybe you guys already knew that stuff, maybe you didn't. I literally learned it like an hour and a half ago. I didn't know the Star Trek thing. And I didn't know I didn't know he won a Grammy. I'm not surprised, but I didn't know that. And that's just, especially since it's Music Monday, there's a fun connection. He is a Grammy award-winning artist. Never realized that. So let's see what you guys are saying. I hope you have some really cool quotes for me. I hope you have some cool thoughts. I'm sure you do. Let's see. August says, justice delayed is justice denied. That's an MLK quote. Right on. And then August, thank you very much for the quote on me. There is nothing pragmatic about an incremental solution to a catastrophic problem. Thank you for the shout out, August. I really appreciate that. People like to take those who are admired, Lady says, and compare themselves to them to try to find something about them that parallels. Okay. Joseph points out he was anti-establishment and anti-war. Pat Hacker points out that's what got him killed. His speeches on labor and poverty. That's kind of funny. Pat's like, that's what got him killed. Not his love of Star Trek. The other thing, the thing you mentioned after that, Ron, that's what got him killed. When he started really addressing, critiques in the capitalistic system, that's what got him killed. And Tim points out, I have heard that the first on-screen interracial kiss was via Star Trek. I've heard that too. I don't know the truth. I don't know if that's for sure the case, but I'll take your word for it. But I have heard that before too. Red Economics says MLK just got even more cool points for being a Trekkie. I really enjoy the early series. I enjoyed a lot. I'm not like an expert by any means, but I do enjoy that basic series or that original series. Although I gotta admit to you guys that whenever I see like reruns of the early Star Trek, like the original like William Shatner stuff and all that, I sometimes do equate it for being sick. Because when I was a kid, whenever I was homesick from school, that's what I would watch all day. I would watch like Star Trek reruns on VHS tape. Because my parents, dating myself a little bit, my parents had a bunch of old Star Trek. They did this Star Trek marathon on one of the networks. Because, this, of course, was years after it was already over as a series. And this is back when if you wanted to have something, you would tape it from television with a VHS tape. Some of you younger folks on the stream might have no idea what I'm talking about. If you're under 30, there's a chance you have no idea what I'm talking about. But I'm old enough to remember that stuff. And they, you would tape it. So they did this big Star Trek marathon. And my dad taped a bunch of he taped the entire marathon. So we had a bunch of Star Trek on VHS. And I would always watch that when I was sick. Because it was really long. So it was like a good way to kind of pass the day when you're sick. Anyway. And Joseph points out that he grew up watching Star Trek Next Generation VHS tapes. Right on. So let's see. Some of you guys are giving shout-outs to Next Generation too. I got into that a little bit, not as much. And let's see if we got any more JFK. Oh, wow, I just did it again. Jeesh, I'm still waking up, folks. And every now and again I have a verbal diarrhea, slip of the tongue, and excuse me. Ahmed says, did I see the FBI tweet celebrating MLK? I did not. And I have a feeling I might not be a huge fan if I did. Steve, I saw an MLK speech on TV in August of 1963. I was 8 years old. I was fascinated, but not quite understanding. I followed his life work since. That's awesome, Steve. And that's a really cool story. I'm sure as an 8-year-old, you weren't cognizant of the moment you were witnessing. I mean, I wouldn't expect an 8-year-old to have that vast of a world perspective. I wouldn't even expect an adult because, when you're experiencing it in the moment, it's hard for you to predict what the future holds, But that's freaking awesome. If I was 8 years old, I don't think I'd be cognizant of everything MLK was saying either. I'm sure I wouldn't be able to grasp the theme of it really. But that's still really freaking cool. You got to see that, even though you were young. Platypus echoes that the FBI tweet was not a good look. I'm sure it wasn't. I don't know what it was. I haven't seen it. But I'd imagine it was probably something a little bit ridiculous. CryptoCam points out MLK supported Medicare for all. He would certainly support universal health care. Absolutely. Sean wishes us all a happy MLK Day. Stephanie points out, do you know about how MLK was pushing for something like universal income because he picked up how jobs were getting more and more automated early on? He did talk about stuff like that, yes. And Public Domain says he was murdered when he expanded his message to the working poor. And Pat Hacker shouts out a jobs guarantee, too, in regards to what MLK taught. So there's a lot about his messages that they kind of gloss over. They being, the establishment. So thank you guys for that. Thank you guys for your thoughts.
Get your news on with Ron. Don't you want to know what's going on? We're getting our news on today. Get your news on with Ron. Don't you want to know what's going on? We're getting our news on today. You can tweet me an article at Ron Placone. We'll go through it together and make